Hey, it's the girl, Indigenous girl, back again. So this live is just going to be a kickback live for me. I'm just here chilling outside like I like to do. And I came across this video and it was describing how Kendrick Lamar defeated Drake and the timeline of it. So I just want to do a reaction on it. And it's quite lengthy, but I'm just here to vibe and chill. So if you guys just want to chill with me, go ahead and get some popcorn and get your beverages and get your smoke, whatever you like to smoke. If not, just chill and vibe with me. So let's get into it, yeah? And we're going to share the screen. Let's get into it, y'all. I think it's very interesting, so he does a good breakdown and timeline. So anybody interested, let's just check it out.
Very emotional, I'm a Gemini. I love hard and I fight harder. I'm born harder.
If you were to take these particular lyrics at face value out of context, they sound like they could have been written into Drake's beef by definition alone is a singular one. Two artists that for the last 15 or so years have represented wildly different sensibilities, attitudes, styles, priorities, and approaches to music. The other two biggest beefs in hip-hop history involved some of the most influential artists of the last 30 years, Big versus Pac, and Jay versus Nas, of course. Intense rivalries, with the consensus being that the eventual deaths of both Big and Pac are inherently tied to the escalating tension between the East and West Coast in the mid to late 90s. But nobody ever really questioned the integrity or authenticity of any of these guys, which is what makes this age no longer confined to regions, cities, or even the genre itself. Kendrick and Drake are both well into their careers as global superstars that transcend the medium of hip-hop. And that's why it matters, regardless of whether you think this beef has been petty or ugly, wildly entertaining. As the dust is settling, I am recording this video just after Kendrick Lamar's pop-out concert. We're going to run through the entirety of his and Drake's relationship with each other throughout the years, and how exactly we got to a point where, right now, a song alleging that one of the biggest artists in the world should be in jail as a registered sex offender is the biggest song in the world. And before I start this, yes, Kendrick Lamar won. I'm going to say it off the bat by a landslide. If you disagree, feel free to shout off in the comments. And also, J. Cole is here somewhere. So if you take it way back to the times of Two Dope Boys and datpiff.com in the early 2010s, Drake had already broken out with So Far Gone and Thank Me Later, while Kendrick was on the precipice of something special. Now, in retrospect, a lot of people attribute Kendrick's exposure or blow up in rap to his Drake co-sign with his Buried Alive feature on Take Care, as well as taking him on tour in 2012 in the run-up to Good Kid, Mad City. And whilst I myself will admit that the very first time I ever heard Kendrick Lamar's voice was on Take Care, I was also 14 years old and still developing my music sensibilities and tastes. In reality, Kendrick had been ceremonially handed the torch of the West Coast in summer of 2011 by the likes of Snoop Dogg and The Game and Warren G. And true to his word, that dude has been running with that torch ever since. Rightfully so, of course. Drake had recognized that Kendrick might be the next big thing and had something special. Kendrick, alongside A$AP Rocky, joined Drake on his Club Paradise tour, a tour that would ultimately end with two more collaborations between Kendrick and Drake in the shape of Poetic Justice and Fucking Problems. Kendrick released Take Care in late 2011, a far superior album in every way than his debut Thank Me Later, characterized by moody, low-key, murky beats, partnered with introspective and reflective lyrics mostly revolving around Drake's rise to fame. The feature list alone is insane, especially with what some of these artists have gone on to do. Rihanna, The Weeknd, Lil Wayne, Andre 3000, Nicki Minaj, and of course Kendrick Lamar himself. This is the album where a lot of Drake fans, and I would include myself in this camp, felt that Drake had found his voice and his bag. Kendrick, meanwhile, followed up his independently released Section 80 with Good Kid, Mad City in October of 2012, and universally. To this day, the album still remains on the Billboard 200, having spent 100 consecutive weeks on the chart. It's rightfully stood the test of time as, in my opinion, one of the best albums ever made, regardless of genre. Good Kid, Mad City had sent Kendrick Lamar into another stratosphere of fame and adoration almost overnight. With one album, there were already murmurs that Kendrick may be on his way to being one of the best to ever do it. If you had asked any rap fan in 2012 or 2013 if Kendrick Lamar and Drake would work together again, most would have bet their house on it. But then came one verse in August of 2013 that changed everything and proved to be the beginning of a 10-year Cold War between the artists that only just went nuclear.
Miscellaneous minds, never explaining the minds. Devilish grin for my alias.
You cannot discuss Kendrick and Drake's beef without Control. It's the inciting incident of all of the tension between the two. In August of 2013, Big Sean drops Control featuring Jay Electronica and Kendrick. And the fact that most people forget Jay Electronica was ever on the song to begin with is a testament to how powerful Kendrick's verse was. In an attempt to restoke the fires of competition in hip-hop, which is something Kendrick clearly sees as a necessary aspect of the art, he directly called out 11 of the most popular rappers of the time directly by name, saying he's got love for them, but he's trying to murder them.
But this is hip hop, and them niggas should know what time it is. And that goes for Jamaica, Big Crit Wale, Pusha T, Meek Mills, A$AP Rocky, Drake, Big Sean, Jay Electron, Tyler McMillan. I got love for you all, but I'm trying to murder you niggas.
This sparked response tracks galore, some from mentioned artists and some who were seemingly offended that they didn't even get a mention. Hip-hop veterans like Jadakiss and Styles P echoed Kendrick's sentiments about the competitive nature and spirit of hip-hop. Later down the line, Nicki Minaj didn't take too lightly to Kendrick declaring himself the king of New York.
Did you feel away when Kendrick didn't mention your name in that Control verse?
Probably in the top 5 because he did mention. So I'm the queen of New York. I'm the king of New York.
Word.
Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why.
With Drake also being on the Young Money roster like Nicki, they did share similar attitudes. Drake was interviewed by Billboard a couple of weeks after the verse had dropped.
Okay, hold up right there. Nicki Minaj. Shout out to Nicki Minaj. She is on one right now. You know, she has joined forces with Trump for her various reasons. She only knows. Shout out to Nicki. We know she's battling what she's battling and she's a strong woman and she's going through things right now, but she needs our support no matter what, because she's fighting the good fight. So it's either you with us on this side or you against us at this point. But as far as this battle, you know, Nicki, she was top. She can battle with the best of them. So there's that.
In seemingly contradictory fashion, Drake had claimed that the verse didn't upset him, however went on record to say that Kendrick is not murdering me at all in any platform. Things get a bit murkier when Drake said he bumped into Kendrick after the VMAs and it was all love. He also said that he'd lost respect for the sentiment of the verse because Kendrick Lamar was friendly and civil with him at the VMAs. Drake did attempt to downplay the power and impact of the verse by calling it a moment to talk about in another interview with Elliot Wilson, and implied that it was forgettable.
And he's doing his thing really well. And that verse was, he's giving people like moments, you know, like that verse was a moment to talk about. Are you listening to it now at this point in time? Okay. And then it was real cool for like, you know, a couple weeks. But like, if I asked you, for example, like, how does that verse start?
He goes on to say that he's more worried about consistency and bodies of work than competition.
Where is Drake at?
Hold up, Drake. You know, you real cocky. He's the kind of dude that's just so like arrogant and cocky. Yeah, you know, you had some good hits and that's about it. Like, where's a good body of work that, you know, actually means something to hip hop? You know, can you make a club banger? Yeah. You know, can you do some silly dances? Yeah. But we know what it is. Hip hop is a culture and it's either in you or it's not. That's just how I feel about it. How do you guys feel about it?
Get with control.
I'm probably like as done as like the rest of the world is with that record. Like I think it came and it went, you know what I mean? And not to discredit it, like it was a good moment, but at the end of the day, it's just like, it was like one of those sort of like fleeting like Twitter frenzies that like, it was cool for what it was, you know, and I'm just into making like, my thing is like, I like lasting power, you know, that's my thing. I want you to still be listening to this album in the summer or, you know, next year, where I want this to stay in your car, stay on your mind.
Which in hindsight is kind of hilarious considering the consistency of Kendrick Lamar's unparalleled album catalog and its longevity. The implication at the end of this interview is that Drake's only real competition is Kanye West.
When it comes to competition, I'm more worried about consistency. I'm more worried about bodies of work. So I'm basically talking about, like, you know, there's one guy who's up every night thinking about how to get better and how to do things bigger. And, you know, that's Kanye West. He's like, and
we all know how that ended up. Drake seemed to be taking it the most personal out of everyone who was mentioned. Pusha T, for example, clearly wasn't fazed. He even had Kendrick Lamar feature on his debut album shortly after with Nostalgia. Late 2013, Post Control begun the long-running sequence of subliminals that culminated in the insanity of 2024. In retrospect now, people are coming up with more and more Drake and Kendrick bars from the last decade that are being reimagined as disses. However, I'm only going to go through the ones that have some semblance of validity, relevance, or notability. The Language is the first notable post-control sub that started to fly around. Drake opens up the song by saying,
I don't know why they've been lying, but your shit is not that inspiring.
Seemingly doubling down on what he said in interviews that Kendrick just had a moment and that he's not real competition. Kendrick appears to respond very quickly after Nothing Was the Same.
Yeah, and nothing been the same since they dropped control and tucked the sense of the rapper back in his pajama clothes. Ha ha, joke's on you, high five.
Amidst an aggressive and fiery verse, Kendrick would later claim that this bar was not about Drake, but I personally find that very hard to believe. A couple of years down the line, in 2015, Drake had entered a very public beef with Meek Mill, who was claiming that Drake was using ghostwriters for his raps. The public consensus was that Drake won the beef with his infamous back-to-back drops, but the issue of Drake's ghostwriters has been a long-running joke ever since in the hip-hop community. Now, if you know anything about hip-hop, not writing your own raps is a big no-no. Of course, there is a history of rappers writing raps for other artists. It's common knowledge, for example, that Jay-Z wrote Still D.R.E., Kendrick has written for Dr. Dre, Drake himself has written for Kanye West. The difference is that within hip-hop circles, artists like Dr. Dre and Kanye West were primarily viewed as producers first rather than pure MCs. So that allegation against Drake is a much more significant one. At the same time of this Meek Mill and Drake beef in 2015, Kendrick Lamar had dropped To Pimp a Butterfly, once again regarded as one of the best albums ever made, and it was setting records up against Michael Jackson for Grammy nominations. On King Kunta, one of To Pimp a Butterfly singles, Kendrick raps, seemingly alluding to the rumors that Drake wasn't writing his raps. That same year in 2015, on the Game's 100 track, the Game himself being a Compton native like Kendrick Lamar, Drake rapped that he'd have
All of your fans, if I didn't go poppin', I stayed on some conscious shit. I would have so many more friends if I lost my success and my confidence.
Now, to me, personally, collabing with a Compton artist, filming a music video in Compton and writing these bars does feel like an attempt at a taunt or a bait towards Kendrick. After this, even the sneak disses were few and far between, with the next most significant moment coming with The Heart Part 4 in 2017 in the run-up to Damn. At the time of its release, people were speculating heavily as to who Kendrick was talking about, with the main contenders being either Drake or Big Sean. In retrospect, it does seem directed at Drake. Kendrick raps, And of course, if you've heard Euphoria, those bars take on an entirely new world of meaning. The Heart Part 4 appears as a response or a warning shot to anyone who claims that they want Kendrick's smoke, with him asserting in the bluntest of terms,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I am the greatest rapper alive.
Alongside differentiating between accomplishments and astonishments. After this, everything seemed to die down on the sneak disses front, but there is one significant, maybe the most significant prelude to 2024's All Out War that changed the rules of rap beef forever. Now, alongside a string of Kendrick sneak disses, Drake had been in a long-standing beef with rap legend Pusha T, who has, of course, a close affiliation with Kanye West. Pusha T, like Meek Mill, was also claiming that Drake wasn't writing his raps, which is what effectively started their beef. Now, I know we could take it back all the way to 2002 with the whole Birdman Clips Pharrell issue, but that could probably warrant its own video on its own. By 2016, Drake was calling into question Pusha T's street cred on Two Birds, One Stone, pitting him as a performative gangster.
But really it's you with all the drug dealer stories, it's gotta stop though. You made a couple chops and now you think you Chapo.
In 2018, on the Kanye West produced Infrared from Daytona, Pusha T once again claimed that Drake didn't write his raps. Whilst it was scathing and aggressive from Pusha, he was even name-dropping Drake's supposed ghostwriter Quentin Miller. Everything was still confined to the music/rap arena. That changed a few hours later with Drake's release of Duppy Freestyle, something that would change the course of rap beef history forever. The song itself is actually quite good. Drake is in good form. He has some clever bars about some of the songs he penned with Kanye West and an amazing beat. It was a pretty strong response with bars like, "You're not even top 5 as far as your label talent goes." However, a seemingly innocuous bar proved to be Drake's downfall.
I told you keep playing with my name and I'ma let it ring on you like Virginia Williams. I'm too resilient.
He mentions by name Pusha T's long-term partner Virginia Williams, not in a particularly malicious or clever way, but in a clear attempt to taunt Pusha T. Pusha T himself said that the bar was whack.
You know, when I heard, like, again, when I heard the Duppy freestyle, I was like, okay, you know, now I have to like really analyze who this person is. And I got to analyze, like, you know, just questions like, man, okay, why would you put her in it? My fiance.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what was, like, the line was trash, right? It was a line about like, I'm gonna make it ring on you like Virginia Williams. The line itself is trash.
This was all Pusha T clearly needed to go full-on supervillain on Drake with the story of Adidon a few days later. Pusha T dissects Drake's racial insecurities, his daddy abandonment issues. He taunts 40, who is Drake's main producer, with his multiple sclerosis diagnosis, and provided one of the biggest bombshells in recent music history by outing the fact that Drake was actively hiding a son.
A baby's involved, it's deeper than rap. We talking character, let me keep with the facts. You are hiding a child, let that boy come home. Deadbeat motherfucker playing border patrol. Ooh.
Not only was he hiding a son, but he was intending to introduce said son to the world via a strategic Adidas campaign. Pusha T blew all of those plans up in about 3.5 minutes, and 6 years later, Drake appears more active in his son's life and has never directly responded to Pusha T on record. At the end of 2019, in an interview with Rap Radar, Drake addressed the beef with Pusha T and implied that there were rules to battle rap and Pusha T had taken it too far.
I'm just not really with that. Like, and when I did say, oh, there's rules to this, I didn't mean there's rules that anybody has to follow. But like in battle rap, you know, they just headshotted that guy the other day because he was on stage and he pulled out a picture of the guy's dead aunt and started rapping about, you know, that type of shit. And it just is what it is. There's a point where you're gonna want to stop rapping.
Pusha T clearly does not agree.
What I think is where they think that you went too far. I don't care. I don't care. Oh. There is no too far.
part of clips or in his own right. To claim that nobody cares about Pusha T is code for numbers means everything. It would be on par with saying nobody cares about MF Doom, which would be ridiculous. The difference is, and it's a difference that Drake either underestimated or just didn't notice, is that with Kendrick, he has that credibility within rap niche circles like Pusha T, on top of huge commercial appeal that can go toe-to-toe with Drake. Artists like that are extremely rare. The only artists I can think of that have that balance of rap niche, close circles respect and commercial appeal is Jay-Z and Outkast. He makes the claim that once family members or children are rapped about, you're not going to want to respond. A claim he fully contradicts with his 2024 releases, but I am getting ahead of myself just there. For 5 years between 2017 and 2022, Kendrick Lamar did not release a solo studio album, and we hardly heard anything from him. Now, it may sound like a tangent going on about this album, but I don't think the events of 2024 play out without its existence. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers is by far, and it's not even close, Kendrick's most personal album ever. In concept, it sees him working through therapy, shedding the savior complex he'd burdened himself with, and ultimately choosing a quiet family life as opposed to changing the world. The album is not an easy listen, but it is endlessly rewarding. Kendrick admits to infidelity during the Good Kid, Mad City tour, and makes it a point not to find an excuse, but a reason someone may do this. Mr. Morale is an album about generational trauma and breaking that cycle, setting yourself free through honesty and admission that sometimes we're just not good people, and we must recognize that before attempting to move forward and heal. Content of...
And when I say, when I heard this part, I was like, you know what? Sometimes that's what music do to you. If that's what you're going through, you know, you can relate to it. You be feeling some kind of way. You be down, you can be depressed, you be, you know, or even happy, or, you know, just vibing. Like whatever your mood may be, that music may hit you, and that may just be, you know what I'm saying, where you at in the time of your life. Like a lot of songs like just help you get through things and relationships and just life in general. I could tell you that there's been some songs that have gotten me through some hard times in life, and I thank goodness for those songs. So I can definitely relate to this, and you know, thanks to the artists who put out that music that we can get through our lives and relate to. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Of the album is confessional in nature, and it's these confessions that mean Drake's later choice of attack on Kendrick completely falls flat. This is the point in Kendrick's career we find him in just before the beef erupts. He's on tour with Baby Keem, he's dropping fun, silly songs like The Hillbillies to tide us over. Then, later in 2023, Drake links up with Mr. Jermaine Cole on a seemingly fun track, not knowing that this is the Franz Ferdinand assassination of this war. I'm not gonna lie, I thought For All the Dogs was a pretty mediocre album with some standout tracks here and there. However, Drake and J. Cole linking up brought out The Child in Me. These are two guys whose music I grew up on in the early 2010s, so it was a personal, nostalgic moment. First Person Shooter is a pretty decent banger. Cole and Drake trade bars, they have good chemistry. Little did Cole know that his positive affirmations would have grave repercussions. Cole simply said,
"Love when they argued our hardest MC. Is it K-Dot, is it Aubrey or me? We the big three like we started a league, but right now I feel like Muhammad Ali."
Continuing the long-running consensus online that Drake, Kendrick, and Cole are the big three of modern hip-hop. Whilst I have personally never subscribed to that theory, not because of Drake or J. Cole's terrible shortcomings, but because I've always thought Kendrick is just in a league of his own. If I compare it to sports, for example, it's like comparing any current footballer to Lionel Messi. I do, however, think it is crazy that we've simultaneously had three hip-hop acts consistently dominate the charts and radio for this long. It's good fighting talk from J. Cole. He's in the big three, but he feels like Muhammad Ali. No pun intended, a friendly jab. It's kind of like, I fuck with you guys, but I fuck with me harder. And that was the end of it. Everyone thought that was the end of it. until March of 2024. Metro Boomin and Future are two pioneers in their own right. Metro Boomin is a certified hit maker. He's worked with the likes of Young Thug, Gunna, Kanye West, and even fucking Spider-Man himself. There is an extremely strong argument that Future is the most influential rapper of the last 10 to 15 years. Atlanta has been one of, if not the most important hip-hop cities for that period, and Future is the de facto face of that. Without Future, there's no Playboi Carti, there's no Lil Baby, there's no Migos, there's no Gunna, and maybe at a push, there might not even be a Young Thug. The fact alone that these are two artists that Drake has worked extensively before is already a statement. Kendrick has also previously worked with Future and Metro Boomin. He hopped on the Mask Off remix in 2017 and had Future contribute to his 2018 Black Panther soundtrack. The Kendrick feature, like the rest of the features on We Don't Trust You, was initially hidden, making it a surprise, perhaps some indication of the impact his appearance would have. Like That is by far the most blatant Drake and to an extent J. Cole diss that Kendrick has spat since Control, only this time it is targeted. He flat out rejects the claim that the Big Three exists, declaring,
Think I won't drop the location, I still got PTSD. Motherfuck the Big Three. Nigga, it's just big me. Nigga, boom.
The beat as well cannot be described as anything else but pure hip hop. Chopped samples, Metro going crazy on an MPC, and Kendrick Lamar fully fired up. Of course, the standout lines and bars are the fuck the Big Three, all your dogs are getting buried, etc. But in hindsight, there are far more telling bars to me. Kendrick says,
I hold them sentiments symbolic. Oh, my temperament bipolar, I choose violence.
Alluding to the long-running theme throughout Kendrick Lamar's discography that he has these two polar opposite sides to him, usually attributed to the fact that he is a Gemini. This bar in particular always makes me think of his 2016 What's Wrong feature with Isaiah Rashad. The next bar is the flat-out call to a challenge.
Okay, let's get it up. It's time for him to prove that he's a problem.
And that he's willing to crash out over this. That's Kendrick saying, if you want a real challenge, come and step to me. And he's clearly assured and confident in his own abilities that he would have no issue winning this battle. I think Kendrick's tactic on this one is to get under Drake's skin. He knows and we know that Drake is a numbers-focused artist. By saying Prince outlived Mike Jack, Kendrick is shifting the lens of the beef by stating he does not give a fuck who's selling more. Projecting himself onto Prince like this shows what Kendrick sees himself as. The artist more versatile, artistically diverse, and flat-out talented than the pop juggernaut. And it's kind of a genius move to kick this off with, as opposed to flat-out name-calling or insults. At this point, I genuinely believe that Kendrick wants to see what his opponent is made of. J. Cole is actually the first to respond instead of Drake on his surprise Might Delete Later mixtape, an ironic name now for obvious reasons. From the jump, this felt lame and uninspired. J. Cole claimed that To Pimp a Butterfly put niggas to sleep. I don't even think J. Cole ever believed that for a moment, let alone his fans. He also attacks Kendrick for the time it takes him to drop music, as well as disregarding his Grammy achievements and telling him that he's effectively fallen off. Within 2 days at his Dreamville festival, J. Cole publicly apologized and admitted that the song was a huge misstep for him.
It's one part of that shit that make me feel like, man, that's the lamest shit I ever did in my fucking life, right? Trying to find a little angle and downplay this nigga's fucking catalog and his greatness. I want to say right now tonight, how many people think Kendrick Lamar is one of the greatest motherfuckers to ever touch a fucking microphone?
Now,
yeah, he was definitely being clowned, and people still talk about it to this day. Does he just drop the fall off?
an entire fucking nuke. Word on the street is that he was maybe warned by Schoolboy Q of what was to come, and I believe most people would have done the same as J. Cole. I know for sure I would have. Cole can now basically never again call himself the GOAT or part of this big three, and I think that's a pretty small price to pay to avoid what was to come in a matter of weeks. In April, a leak of a supposed Drake response track called Push Ups appears online. Immediately, there was speculation whether this was created with AI or not, which for me was already a red flag, a signifier that Drake's recent output had become so homogenous that it was hard to differentiate between himself and AI. We soon had confirmation that this was indeed a genuine track once it was officially uploaded on April 19th. Scatterbrained in nature, Push Ups is primarily a response to Like That, although a variety of stars are hit with strays, including Rick Ross, The Weeknd, and even the basketballer Ja Morant. As it pertains to Kendrick Lamar himself, the disses were okay, I guess.
Like your label, boy, you in a scope right now, and you gon' feel the aftermath of what I write down.
The track itself is your standard run-of-the-mill, mid-tempo Drake trap-style song, with the shots at Kendrick attacking his height, his shoe size, and his record deal, or previous record deal with TDE. Admittedly, with some funny bars, particularly
Metro.
Okay, guys. I hope that the video got far. And we're going to stop right here, and I'll come back with the part 2. Okay. So, thanks for coming. I appreciate you guys. Comment below. Let me know if you guys think. I know hip-hop is a big subject, and we love it today. And I just want to go down memory lane, and I'll be back with this part 2. All right? Please like and subscribe, and thank you guys for coming. Have a good night. Peace, love, and light.